it's not a party political meeting, so we've got a bit of stick from people because we're saying, look, this is a citizens, and politicians are citizens, so it's not it's mainly to give voice to the people themselves. The meeting is designed to try to deal with two main issues. The first being the desirability of getting agreement with all the main anti-water charge groups to cooperate together for at least 6 months on on a program. That what we've been finding in the area is that sometimes you get maybe Navan's having a meeting today and Trim is having a meeting today. And so in Trim you have that group there and the other group here in Navan. But if you have both meetings, a meeting in one area at a time.
And there's a thing called political economy. All political economy is really a means to explain how the economy works and who it works for. And if you haven't worked this one out yet, it's not us. But the economy does work, and it does work for someone. And today we're going to look at who exactly it works for. And we're going to look at the idea that austerity is not, the phrase austerity isn't working, people keep saying austerity is working. It's working very, very successfully, but for a small group of people. And that's what it's designed to work for. It's designed to work for a particular small group of people. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is every time we do this work in community groups, there's a huge number of people interested in political reform in Ireland, and particularly kind of improving democracy. Noel talked about participative democracy, but no one's talking about economic democracy. No one's talking about how you democratise the economy. How do you make things more equal in this society in terms of income and wealth creation? If you only talk about political reform and don't talk about economic reform, then you're kidding yourselves. It's not either, it's both. You need political democracy, you also need economic democracy, because as we know, if you allow wealth to accumulate in the hands of the few, they just buy democracy. They just corrupt it and they purchase it, and we know that. If you want to find out, I suppose, where this phase of economic change began, you could do worse than perhaps talking about Chile in 1973. And in our courses that we deliver for Unite for the Right to Water groups, we look at Chile, and not Chile just in Pinochet and Thatcher. They're very good friends, and that's the link, of course, you're looking for. Apart from the torture and the mass murder that took place in Chile in 1973 and a right-wing coup, another very interesting thing that was happening at the same time, which people often ignore, and that was an economic change in Chile. About a few months after the Chilean coup, Pinochet flew in the boys, or what they call the Chicago boys, a group of economists from the Chicago School of Economics, and they were given the task of remaking the Chilean economy, of redesigning the Chilean economy. And over the next 19 years, they basically privatised Chile. And that should sound familiar to people here today who've been watching what's happening in Ireland particularly over the last 7 years, but also in Britain for the last 20, 30 years, in America for the last 30 years. The privatisation of vast areas of the economy is really what has been going on for the last 30, 40 years. You might call it the Chilean experiment, which is what they did. They referred to it as their experiment. You can call it Thatcherism. You can call it Reaganomics. You might call it neoliberalism. You can also call it bailout conditions. Because if you check what went on in Chile in the 1970s and 80s, it's largely what's going on in Ireland today, which is basically privatisation of everything. The Chicago boys then had a list of the things they wanted to do. One was, of course, destroy the union movement. In Chile, it was mass murder. In Ireland, you could argue it was social partnership. We just kind of rolled over and let it happen to us. Thatcher certainly done in the unions. Reagan did in the unions. The death of social democracy, low tax regimes, race to the bottom, what they call labour market flexibility, or 0 hours contracts as we now know them, or hire and fire. Massive and rising inequality, of course, and also financial deregulation, which I haven't got time to go into tonight, but basically the issuing of and trading of debt, which led to a massive financial bubble which birthed in 2008. But central to the entire project, again, whether it's in West Africa, South America, or indeed Ireland, is privatisation, and that's what I really wanted to talk about tonight. And it's become, if you like, the dominant way of understanding economics. So much so that, as Thatcher famously said, Tina, she said, and what she meant by that, there is no alternative. This is the economy, just get with the programme. There's no alternatives, stop looking for alternatives. And every government in Western Europe is heading down the same road. They've all started from different positions, but they're all heading in the same direction. And the same direction is a new kind of economy. And you're seeing it emerge across Europe and across Africa and across South America. And this is kind of a dictatorship of no alternatives. There's no other way to run the economy. And it's colonised everywhere. The academia, it's colonised politics, even the labour movement. People in my own labour movement have said, well, there's no point fighting this, you might as well just get with the programme, we'll try and take the rough edges off it. But it's here to stay, so there's no point fighting it. And this new kind of economy doesn't hide away. You don't need to look for conspiracy theories. You don't have to look at chemtrails and Bilderberg groups and the Illuminati. They're telling us what they're about to do. There's a front page from The Economist last year. If you want to pick up the Financial Times, you can every day. They're about to tell you what they're coming for next. They list them, and they tell you what they want to privatise. They tell you where if there's an income stream in it, they want it. $9 trillion sale, almost everything must go. Buildings, land, power, state-owned assets, oil, gas, mineral rights, banks, transport. There's nothing they won't privatise if they can get their hands on it. And then we'll look at a few examples of that today if I get a chance. And of course, as you know very well, water is part of that fight, or part of that global move towards privatisation. That was when was it now? 2 months ago nearly, in April in Athens. Again, I don't think they realised when they organised the conference in Athens that Syriza were going to be elected, because there was an awful lot of trouble at that conference, obviously. And it was a meeting of people from across the world, of private sector water companies. And if you wonder what they were there to talk about, you only have to check their website, because their website was called watermeetsmoney.com. So again, it's not hidden, it's not a conspiracy. They're telling us if we can make money out of it, we're coming for it and we want it. And one of the things they want the most are the things that we need the most. So communications, water, natural resources, energy, roads, communication, anything that's really health insurance or health systems, education, anything we need, they want, because they know we'll pay for it. And that's why the privatisation war is only one, unfortunately, a long list of battles that face us. It's like a bit like a false horizon. When you're climbing a mountain, you think you've got to the top, and you get to the ridge, you see another fucking ridge in front of you. And unfortunately, that's what we're facing over the next 5 to 10 years. They said on the website, I love this, bringing top water leaders together to share their water management insights and to point the way towards making water an economic value. So there you have it in black and white, to turn water into a profit-driven commodity. That's the purpose of water privatisation. Veolia, one of the sponsors of that conference in Athens. Veolia, I think, have a large contract in Ireland for waste management. They're also installing water meters around Kildare, so they were directly involved. The idea that you treat a country like a business is ridiculous economically, isn't it? It's a nonsense. A country is not a shop. All governments have been in debt forever. For the last 250 years, Britain's been in debt for 215 of them or something. It's kind of a rolling debt. What it does mean, if you introduce a law like the Fiscal Compact Treaty that was passed here in Ireland, which limited GDP and debt ratio, so the Irish government can only borrow a certain amount of money. If you limit the amount of money a government can borrow by law, but you still need roads, you still need rail, you still need hospitals, you still need healthcare, well, where do you go for the money? The private sector can go and borrow the money. The private sector can build the road, build the hospital, build the school, and then it places a toll booth on that service, and then you have to pay the toll to use the service. And it's so inefficient because, of course, the private sector are borrowing the money. They still got to pay their money back. So they place so national debt that the government would normally carry becomes our debt. And there's a massive transfer of debt from the state to individual citizens who have to borrow to use the tolls, who get into debt to use the tolls. And private borrowing is more expensive than the state borrowing the money, because when the private sector borrows money, it pays back the capital, it pays back the interest, but it also makes a profit. Whereas when the state borrows money, it's just capital and interest. And all of that debt is transferred onto the backs of the citizens. And that's another way they transfer debt, and they also use privatisation as a means to grab wealth, which is really what privatisation is about. It's a massive wealth grab. You would ask yourself, I suppose, who benefits from that? And of course, our own gone-being class benefits. They're the people doing the deals, they're the people issuing the licences, they're the people buying the shares in the foreign companies that benefit from our resources. None of us are, of course, but someone is. And there's a small class of people in this country, a small gone-being class, who, when the flag was taken down in 1921 and we raised the tricolour, power was handed over to a similar small group of people who benefited and have benefited ever since, in the complete absence of a genuine republic. Big free trade zone, which is going to it's going to kind of unify Europe in America in terms of free trade. It's going to have a very, very negative impact on us. And one example, Pascal Koenigs, he's a lobbyist for Vodafone, IBM and the bank. He said, industry will oppose any deal in which investment protection is traded off against public policy objectives, including human and labour rights. And TTIP specifically promotes access to public monopolies to promote competition in the interests of the consumer. So when you see public monopolies, think of health, think of education, think of anything that the state currently delivers on behalf of the people. Childcare, doesn't matter what it is. If there's money to be made in it, if they can put a toll booth on it and charge you, that's what they'll do. And TTIP will guarantee the privatisation of everything. They're coming for everything. And that's a real fear for us all. And TTIP will put that into law, and it'll be very difficult for us to change. I haven't got time to go into TTIP, but what's the TTIP network? It's a really good Facebook site if you want an example. That's from Watford Whispers. Government's run out of things to sell off. Sold Aer Lingus, didn't we? Or in the process of selling Aer Lingus. What did we sell it for? About 1.3 billion, was it? It has 1 billion euros of assets, in the back, cash assets. It has 500 million euros worth of stocks in Heathrow. So at the moment we're about minus 250 million in the sale of Aer Lingus. We're literally giving it away to whoever wants to buy it. We've given away our resources once again. You can't make this shit up. Again, who benefits? Do we benefit? We don't benefit. But again, one class of people do benefit. The people who own the shares in that new company and the people who are doing the deal. Gene Kerrigan had a brilliant analogy. He said, in Ireland, he says, when there's a deal done or there's a new piece of legislation being introduced, there's always someone who says disappearing into the distance with a bag of cash. Because that's the fixer. That's the gone bean man. That's the man doing the deal. And he's stripping us bare, and they're at it now all the time. In terms of the statistics, back in 1982, to get on that list, you needed $91 million. And there were 13 billionaires on the list. By 1998, you needed 500 million to get on the list, and there were 189 billionaires on that list. So if you want to know where all the money has gone, they're not hiding this, they're telling us. The Walton family, who own Walmart, Asda, ranked number 4 through 7, about 90 billion they have. How much is that, you would ask us? What do we mean by 90 billion? Give me an example. It would take someone making $20,000 a year, which is quite a good wage if you're a cashier in Walmart. It would take you 1 million years to net the amount that one of those brothers and sisters is worth. You're not that spend any of that money. Just if you worked for 1 million years and got $20,000 a year, you'd have to sit behind that till for 1 million years. That's how much money they have. Now, anyone who defends that system, it's an obscene system, and the levels of inequality are growing, not just in America, but here and every country across Western Europe and every country across the globe. You could call it the age of inequality. The United Nations Development Programme, again, not a wildly radical organisation, the UN, it stated that an annual 4% tax on the world's richest, on these people here, 84 individuals, would provide adequate food, safe water, basic education, healthcare for all developing nations. Now that's not taking their money off them, that's a 4% tax on what they have. We'll kind of cure Africa. The end of charity, end of trochra, Christian aid wouldn't need it anymore. 4% of what they have, a tax of 4%. It's obscene that we allow this to continue to happen, and it's only getting worse. I'm not going to say it, so I'll let him say it instead, and I'll finish now. This is Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest men on the planet, in case you haven't heard of him. He's a multi-billionaire. There is class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning. Now, if he can say that, if he can say there's class war, I think we should be able to say it as well. If he recognises that they're waging war against us, then we have to recognise that someone's waging war against us, and we need to start fighting back. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland. It's about time we started living up to that notion. Gormaigi, thanks very much.
I've heard him doing that at least once a day for the last 5 weeks, and I'm still depressed after it. But we need to wake up. A couple of statistics that Stephen has said and I use at most meetings. I kind of say we live in the worst times ever. That sounds like a stupid thing to say, right? We've had famines, we've had plagues, we've had wars, and we're sitting here in a fantastic sports facility. We've all had something to eat today, we've all got clothes, most of us have got cars outside. So how can your man come up here from Dundalk, stand in Navan, and tell us we live in the worst times ever? Well, okay, we're not slaughtering each other on battlefields anymore. We don't have a plague, we don't have a pandemic. But just think about what Stephen's after saying. Oxfam have confirmed in the last few weeks that in 2016, for the first time in human history, the top 1% of the population in terms of income holders will own more assets than the other 99% of us put together. Slavery didn't even do that. Slavery didn't even lead to the sort of wealth distribution that creates that obscenity. And before we get all, patriotic and that's Oxfam, there must be a bit of Africa thrown in there, or a bit of Asia or something. So we're Irish, tiger and all that. Within our economic unit, the European Union, again as Stevie has said, we are the most unequal country in the European Union. So we live at a time when wealth distribution is the most obscene it has ever been in the history of the planet, ever. And our country is the most unequal in the European Union. And I was thinking about Ireland, and I was thinking about the crash, and I was thinking about the fact that we had our nation, which is less than 1% of the European population, had taken on 42% of banking debt while we slept in bed at night. The legacy people that RTE are busy making documentaries about, which you can watch tomorrow, right? While we slept in bed at night, give us 1% of the European Union, 42% of the banking debt. Don't think we could believe it. Most of us couldn't kind of believe it. It can't be that bad. It's going to be the cheapest bank guarantee in history. I remember where I was when Brian Lenihan said that. I was in a hotel in Tarbert in Kerry, trying to stop ESB, that Stevie's after talking about, from selling power stations to a Spanish multinational company. And when I was having my breakfast, Brian Lenihan was on the radio after giving the bank guarantee, telling Morning Ireland, I think it was, it's going to be the cheapest bank guarantee in human history. 65 billion euro later, and that's just Anglo. That's before Dennis O'Brien started, getting knock-off bits of it and changing names of banks, so we kind of forget, and he changed names of companies that got names of banks, and then they started giving them water meters that the Germans wanted to give us for nothing, but we wouldn't have them for nothing now. We'll pay Dennis's company to put them in. Why would we have them for nothing when we can pay Dennis's company to put them in? Why would we do that? So then they took the ESB workers' pension that everybody in ESB paid for. They all paid for it. It's not, non-contributory pension that the employer just pays. Not many of them around these days. Paid a lot of money into it. Guaranteed their pensions. But it was on the books. And something could go wrong. Something had gone wrong 3 times in the last 20 years with the pension scheme. So what the company wanted to do was take the pension scheme off the books. Just disappear it. Magic dust, gone. So that when something happened the next time, it wasn't the company that had to put money in or take the risk. It was gone, had disappeared, angel dust had delivered it, and the pension was saved. The company was saved. The workers took all the risk. Transfer all the risk. Transfer all the assets to the corporations and all the risk to the workers, the citizens. So we had a bit of a scrap about that, came pretty close to the lights gone out. Didn't go out. Won it, as Noel says, and we're talking to community groups here. In communities, people just started getting a bit angry about the water meters going in. It started, I think, in Toher and Cork. He was shaking his head. Okay, Seamus started it. Seamus started in Kells and County Meath.
Exactly, yes.
And around the country, people started protesting about the water meters going in. And there was an anger that built up. And when Right to Water was formed, Right to Water is a campaign. People think it's an organisation. It's not. It's a campaign. It's an umbrella of hundreds, maybe thousands of other campaigns. And we were thinking, there's just the potential. 6 years on after the crash, 6 years on after the transfer of private gambling debt onto the Irish public's heads. It's just a potential for a fight back here. How can we give maximum expression to that potential? Stevie uses the word they, and I use the word they. We're talking about the 1% who are getting all our assets. And that's how they do it. They do it because we allow them. Because instead of us talking about what we've got in common and organising about what we've got in common and showing social solidarity with each other, we very quickly, within 60 seconds or 2 minutes or 3 minutes of having conversation with each other, come across something that we disagree on, and we spend the rest of the night then talking about what we disagree on. They couldn't do it straight away. If they could have done it straight away, they'd have done it in 2009, like they did in Greece, like they did in Portugal. What they need to do it straight away is they need a single utility with meters, so that when the country goes bust, the IMF, which was a creation of the Chicago School of Economics that Stevie talks about, as is the World Bank, they come with their big checkbooks. They don't even exist anymore, it's just all electronic stuff. They come and they say, you've got yourselves in a bit of a mess here, guys. We'll give you money for a couple of years. You'll be able to pay your teachers, be able to pay your guards, you'll be able to provide your public services, but we'll have your water, we'll have your education system, we'll have your health system, and we'll have the money back that we're giving you as well. At a pretty high interest rate, no free deals here, bailout. You do a better deal in the credit union. What do we agree on? What do we, the 99%, agree on when it comes to water? We probably agree that water is a human right. Just stick with that point. Water is a human right. That's all we agree on. So let's not talk about anything else now. We just keep that, put it in the bank, under the mattress. So what do we want to do now? Well, what do we want to do? Do we want to stop the meters going in? Do we want to not pay? Do we want a non-payment campaign? Do we want civil disobedience? Do we want loads of marches? Do we want to create a new political party? We could have arguments about all these things. We could fall out with each other about all these things. In fact, some of us are falling out with each other about some of these things. So what we said we'd agree on, we'd agree that we want the abolition of domestic water charges. That's it. Don't talk about anything else now. One objective, one belief, water is a human right, one objective. And we went off on a journey. And 100,000 people came from nowhere. The people who had been suffering from national collective trauma got off their arses and came to Dublin on the 11th of October. And a march that was supposed to take a mile had to be extended to 5.4 miles. Well, no, is it not just about water? What else might it be about? Might it be about the fact that for the first time since the famine, we are having families being made homeless in Ireland? Might it be about the fact that when Enda Kenny was going to work one day, possibly not him, he probably was in a different entrance, when TDs were going to work one day, they walked past a homeless person, not through any unfortunate addictions or anything like that, just a homeless person who died on the steps about 80, 90 yards from the gates of the Dáil. Could it be about that? Could that be the thing that Enda Kenny's saying it's not just about? Could it be about the banking debt? Could it be about the fact people can't pay their mortgages? The joblessness, the emigration, the fact we all know someone that's emigrated. Most of us, if we've got big families, we all have someone in our families that's emigrated. Could it be about that? Could it be about democratic reform? Could it be about the fact that in 2011 Fine Gael and Labour told us that they were going to reform the way we do politics, that they were going to change the Dáil? And since then, Fine Gael and Labour, in terms of changing the Dáil, have treated the chamber and have treated the opposition and have treated the citizens who elected them with absolute contempt. Now look it. I didn't think it was possible that a government in this country could treat its citizens with any more contempt than Bertie Ahern and his cronies. Mary Harney, Charlie McCreevy, these clowns that wrecked the country treated us. But up until last year when we all came to the streets, when I looked at Richard Bruton or Phil Hogan or Joan Burton, you don't see Enda much on the telly, on the 6 o'clock news, and you look at them and they're talking to you and you're having your tea, you just know they hate you. Can we actually help to deliver change? Because in Right to Water, some of the communities have kind of got involved with the unions and Some of the political parties who are usually fighting out and killing each other have started, you know, being a bit more polite to each other at least. And can we broaden the agenda beyond water and bring some of that unity into play and enable the communities? How do we enable the communities? Because the communities were full of passion and full of anger and full of noise and full of, they wanted marches and they wanted more marches. So we decided we would provide the political economy training that Stevie is after giving you an insight into. And it's no exaggeration to say every single one of them has left the building at the end of the course. Probably 2 words: furious and scared. Furious at what's being done in their name and in the name of democracy, and scared at the scale of it. Scared at the horror of it. They're doing 2 or 3 jobs, hoping they won't get caught, just to pay the mortgage. Maybe not able to have kids. Why? Is there less wealth in the world now than there was in 1970, when a man's wages, usually a man's wages, I know that had downsides too, could keep a house of 8? Is there less wealth in the world? There's not. But it's been taken from all of us and pushed up. And that's huge. What's it going to be like when my kids have kids? What's it going to be like then if we don't do something about it? In the 2011 general election, there was an electoral part of Dublin where the turnout was 14%. 14% of the people entitled to vote in a general election voted in a particular part of Dublin. And other parts of Dublin, let's say Terranure, I was picking Terranure, I don't know why, I like Terranure. Terranure, Dublin 4, Killiney or whatever, they vote. They vote. Won't surprise you to know that that part of Dublin, 14%, is one of the most socially and economically deprived areas in the entire country, West Tala. They have managed to persuade the 99% of us to act against our own best interests. They persuade us to act and behave day after day against our own best interests. One way to do it is to create diversions that we can argue with each other about. Right? But think of America for a minute. You've got the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, mostly that's what you've got. And it's always a wonder to see working class people in some of the poorest parts of America coming into a general election in America. And you watch it because there's a blanket coverage on the news. And they're voting Republican. Usually because of God. God's a good one. Now look, I'm not going to bore you with my religious beliefs or lack of them, but for neoliberalism, God is a gift. Right? Because it's a way of getting poor people, creating arguments, and getting poor people to vote for neoliberal parties. But, you know, we all voted for Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael because were you a Garrett man? Or were you a Charlie man? Or a Dev man? Or a Michael Collins man? Or my grandfather did this, or my granny did that. And we actually voted on this basis. And we've got to a situation now where those 2 parties do not disagree with each other on anything that he had on his slides tonight. Not a single thing. There is not a single thing on his slides tonight that voting for one or other of those will change. And the same goes for the Labour Party. Doesn't give me any pride to say that, but it's a fact. There's no doubt that we will win the water campaign. I have no doubt about it. I didn't have any doubt about it last November. But we will win the water campaign in the sense that I don't see how they're going to get 79 TDs returned in the next general election who will stand over the current government's water policy. Every party and independent now, apart from the 2 government parties, are committed to the abolition of Irish water. But as Stevie says, that will just be one battle won. So don't spend any money on it now, you're wasting your money. And if you do spend water on Irish Water now, by the way, and it's done away with next year, you know, don't blame me when you don't get your money back. Policy areas, this is a draft document. It'll be printed up with some amendments on Saturday. And we produced policies in water, the abolition of water, Irish water within 100 days of a new government, and the insertion of a new constitutional amendment that will protect the ownership of your water in perpetuity in the Constitution. Jobs and decent work, right to housing, health, the right to debt justice, some good ones in that, the right to education, the right to democratic reform, right to equality, right to sustainable environment, because the economic model we're talking about is killing the planet, by the way, and a right to our natural resources, which is obviously a very, very important one. And what we're going to try to do, and we're hoping that the water movement, and I keep calling it a movement, will do it with us, that will turn into a machine that will do to the government this October, November, what it did to it last November. Terrify them. And whether it be the Anti-Austerity Alliance, People Before Profit, Sinn Féin, or a whole host of councillors, or something new that may or may not emerge, that the policy principles in that document that have come through a public consultation process, that the people in that water campaign will not only support them and vote for them, but will turn into an army who will canvass all around Ireland in conversations with your friends and neighbours in your houses and knock doors and bring little nuggets of statistics such as some of the ones Stevie gave you today and say, do you know this? And if we don't do something about this, we'll never change it. Now, can that be done in the next election? I don't know. But I know that there are a few people around the place who are so angry and determined, and if we could get the knowledge that Stevie has and brought here tonight in small ways to 100, 200, 300,000 people, we just got that, we could change the country forever, because nobody's going to stand over that. They just need to be told about it. So what we're going to try to do is hold 30 or 40 meetings in the next month with that presentation, and get hundreds of people, and then hopefully thousands of people to hold more meetings, get little stick-ins there, what do you call them, USBs, so you can all hold your own meetings in your own groups, Noel, and get that information out there. To hundreds of thousands of people, there's your problem. And then there's your solution. So I've gone on too long, so I'll shut up. Thanks very much.